apologize for giving, well, let me do this for a moment. First of all, I want to acknowledge this board and its work. You know, I've always said that when people work, we ought to reward work. We ought to respect the people who do work. We ought to pay people a fair and decent wage. But at a minimum, we ought to pay them the minimum wage. I know that you are looking into some of the abuses in the car wash industry, really ferreting out the state of what's and the condition of the people who work in those industries, and I want to acknowledge you and thank you for your work. I know virtually all of you here and go back sometime with many of you, and I know that you're going to get to the bottom of what's going on in this industry and hopefully propose the remedies, the solutions, if you will, to kind of address some of these abuses. And I'll speak to the people here. Obviously, I wanted to give them respect, but I was asked to come here to welcome you. It's fitting. This is a public works chamber, and you know, at a time when so many of our cities, our states, our municipal governments are being cut and decimated, budgets, layoffs, and furloughs, we still have to maintain the idea and the proposition that in these times we ought to reward work, we ought to ensure that we're all observing the basic workers' rights, right to collective bargaining, the right to decent working conditions that all of us come to expect in a democratic society, and certainly in the richest state and the richest country in the history of the planet. I'll now say a few words over here. First of all, I want to thank all of you. It's good to see so many of you here in the Public Works Chamber. You got to hear me. I just was asked to speak to the board initially. But I want to say to all of you that the city's committed, and that's why I'm here on behalf of this great city, to the idea of addressing an economic crisis that heretofore we hadn't seen, at least in my generation. A city where 14% of the people are unemployed. A city where 28,000 people have lost their homes due to foreclosure in the last 2 years. A city where, unfortunately, not only do we have an unemployment rate that is higher than most cities, but also an underemployment rate. And so, at a minimum, the people that are working ought to be working in jobs where they get a decent wage. And as I said here, in our state, they define that differently. We have a living wage ordinance in our state, and due in no small part to some of the people who are here today, we have, but at a minimum, we ought to be paying the minimum wage, at a minimum. We ought to be, at a minimum, respecting our OSHA laws, our worker safety laws, our health laws at these places. And I think it is important that the public understand just what's going on in these industries. And the people here are people who have the credibility, the experience to be able to share the facts, because that's what this is about. It does us no good to make statements that don't have facts behind them, but these are people who I have a great deal of confidence in. As I said, these are people who I've worked with for many years now, and I want to thank them for their work, thank them for coming together and convening this very important body. Ultimately, I do want to mention the issue of immigration reform. Ultimately, we know part of what's going on in this industry and other industries when people are allowed to stay in the dark and not come into the light. And I think it's very important, and I said this to a group of labor leaders that were in my office earlier today, that we have to have immigration reform in our country so that people aren't threatened with immigration laws when they try to organize, when they try to come together for something as basic as the right to representation. Déjame decir, porque hay algunas personas que hablan español y están bienvenidos aquí a la Cámara de Trabajos Públicos, que es una cámara que representa la obligación de la ciudad de Los Ángeles de crear los servicios, de asegurar que estamos cumpliendo con la reparación de las calles y la infraestructura, que es parte de la responsabilidad del gobierno municipal. Al mismo tiempo quiero dar la bienvenida a este grupo de estimados individuales que están aquí para investigar qué está pasando en la industria del lava de carros, una industria donde donde entendemos que hay algunos abusos acerca de cómo les tratan a los trabajadores de esa industria. Sabemos que deberíamos pagar un trabajador un sueldo para vivir, un sueldo para mantener su familia, especialmente en un estado y en un país que es el más rico en la historia del planeta. Pero al mínimo tenemos que cumplir con las leyes, y la ley dice que hay un sueldo mínimo, y sabemos que hay algunos que no están recibiendo ese ley mínimo. Hay algunos que están trabajando con negocios de lava de carros donde ni están recibiendo, observando las leyes de seguridad y de salud que son reconocidos en nuestras leyes estatales. Y quiero dar las gracias a este estimado grupo de individuales. Espero y tengo toda confianza que van a investigar y asegurar que estamos compartiendo con el público lo que está pasando en esta industria. Yo creo en el derecho de un trabajador o una trabajadora de organizar, y al fin dije, también tenemos que apoyar una reforma migratoria comprensiva, porque pues sí. No para mí, no para mí, pero para esos miembros del Congreso que no nos están escuchando, porque en estos momentos sabemos que hay algunos que tratan de abusar del trabajador por el solo hecho de no tener documentos, y cuando pueden trabajar para ser un ciudadano, están en el luz y no en el oscuro, y no los pueden abusar en la misma manera. So, gracias a todos ustedes otra vez. Thank you all very much. Let me, I know everybody, but of course, I always have to acknowledge my cardinal, because this is a man who's always stood with working people, but importantly, also always stood for immigration reform and for the idea that social justice is a tenet of our faith. And I want to thank you, but all of you, all esteemed members of this very important group. Thank you very much.